Welcome to the Business Executive Breakfast Series organized by MTN Business. This is a platform where your minds are fed with some of the most important concepts in business, pulling the experience of some high-level CEOs. Today's program is very special indeed. A couple of years after COVID-19, we're wondering, how did organizations survive? How did they combine the need to defend themselves with the imperative of moving forward progressively? Well, it's called organizational resilience. What role did CEOs play in that field? We'll be discussing that from various angles today for the next hour and a half. My name is Bernard Avele, and I'm a moderator for the program. When we come back, I'll tell you more about what we have in store for you, but this program is brought to you by MTN Business. We'll be right back.
Good business means seeing the possibilities and maximizing opportunities. Making sure you have a responsive support system backs your business goals. A partner that gives you a stable platform with reliable connectivity and seamless solutions, and better understands the tools required to take you to the next level. With so many moving parts in running a business, we do our best to provide you with some stability, the only kind of stability you can find with MTN Business Broadband, the fastest and most reliable internet provider in Ghana, making sure you stay ahead and stay connected, because we understand what makes your business tick.
Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh or call or WhatsApp 0244 308 111.
MTN.
This is the Business Executive Breakfast Series brought to you by MTN Business. And today we're exploring the role of organizational leadership, particularly CEOs in organizational resilience. These are concepts that have become very familiar to us in the times that we're in. It's a live and interactive show. We're live on all the major social media platforms. So whether you're watching us on YouTube, Facebook Live, or you're even following us on Zoom, thank you for joining us. And we're not asking you to watch us in vain. We have some fantastic goodies for you at the end of the program if you can answer a simple question. Tell us your name, your business location, the type of business you run, and tell us how any MTN business solution has helped transform your business in a very short sentence. If we like what you say, we'll give you some fantastic prizes at the end. Watch out for that. Now, if you're excited about what you're watching and you want to share, click the like button at the bottom of the screen and our hashtag MTN Business. We also happy to hear from you as the program proceeds. Send us your thoughts, send us your questions and your comments, and my crack panel will be happy to answer. So what's the format for today's program? We're exploring the relationship between tensions, the tension of balancing risk and new opportunities, the tension of mitigating risk and launching new innovations. Essentially, we're asking, how do organizations survive in tough times? And what is the role of the CEO? We're going to give each of the selected CEOs 7 minutes maximum to share their reflections on this topic. Then they will answer our questions and your questions on how they've done it so far. That's the plan for the day. I'm going to start by introducing a CEO I admire, not even in the industry she's in. First time we met her, she was doing banking, doing very, very well. And now she's making insurance very exciting. And she's in the person of Mrs. Patience Akyianu. She's the CEO of Hollard Ghana. She will set the ball rolling because her colleague CEOs say ladies must go first. And she's always been first wherever she's gone, doing some fantastic things. So we're going to give her a Hollard charge. I met Hollard a few weeks ago, and they have a charge. You need to help me, AVL. You say Hollard, and what did they say? Hollard, and then you say Hollard. What's the third one? So let's go through again. When I say Hollard, you say Ghana's favorite insurer. When I say Hollard, you say unstoppable, and then they charge like vandals. Okay, so if you're watching, let's go together. So Hollard,
Ghana's favorite insurer.
Hollard,
Unstoppables.
Hollard,
Charge.
and with that, let's put our hands together for Patience Akyianu to come and bring us her thoughts on this very important topic.
Thank you, Bernard. Good morning, esteemed listeners. Thank you for the opportunity to share some thoughts on this very important topic. So the past 2 years have actually demonstrated that organizations around here are actually resilient. And for us in Hollard, we not only embraced the uncertainty with purpose, but we actually took advantage of the risk we were facing to innovate and digitize. And now we've become very efficient at our product delivery and also how we deploy our services to our customers. And 3 things have kept us focused. The first is our purpose. Our purpose is to enable more people to create and secure a better future. The second is our vision. Our vision is to become Ghana's favorite insurer. And third, our values, which we call the Hollard Way. And what we mean by the Hollard Way, in the Hollard Way, we put customers first. We choose excellence all the time. We innovate, and we work as a team. Now, how the organization has turned out after the pandemic, robust and resilient, is not a matter of luck. Incidentally, I was reading an article recently, and there was a Canadian CEO who, I'm sure she was trying to be modest, but she came across as being a bit, some way. She said, we got out, she was talking to her staff and a few stakeholders, she was like, we've come out strong out of this pandemic because of luck. But no. Look, don't get me wrong. I believe in the grace of God and all that. I'm a Ghanaian. But in addition to that, there's a lot of work that went into getting us where we are today. A lot of work that we did together as a team. 3.5 years ago, when I took over Hollard, one of the first things, one of my key priorities was to ensure that every member of staff fully understood our vision. So I engaged the entire team and rallied them around the vision. And now, really, everyone, or most of us, own the vision. We are very committed to the vision, and we are living it out authentically. And so that is why, during the pandemic, when most of us were working from home and there was remote work and your manager was not breathing down your neck, productivity skyrocketed. We did significantly more than we were doing before the pandemic, because now everyone lives and breathes the vision. And then, secondly, working together with the team, we put together the right strategy for this market. And without sharing our strategy on this public platform, you can all see that Hollard is doing something well. You can see how well we've performed so far, and very clearly, our strategy is setting us apart and differentiating us in the market. Then, as a purpose, Hollard is actually a purpose-driven organization, and we have an entrepreneurial mindset. And so, in addition to the expectations to generate long-term value for our shareholders, which is one of my key responsibilities as a CEO, my other responsibilities are to serve the needs of multiple stakeholders. And some of these include our customers, our employees, our suppliers, the regulator, media, government, our community. And in addition to that, one of the core functions of a CEO now, especially in these fast-changing times, is risk management. So, to summarize, to recapitulate, 5 things occupy me as a CEO in these times. The first is delivery of value to our customers and our clients. And the customer is always at the center of all our innovations. The second is investing in our employees and talent development, because people are the assets of the company. And then the third is investing and adding value to our communities. And in addition to that, protecting the environment. Sustainability has become, very key to how we do business going forward. And the fourth is risk management. And then the fifth and final one, which incidentally used to be the main purpose of organizations, is generating, and mind you, I didn't say maximize, generating long-term value for our shareholders. So on that note, thank you for your kind attention.
Wow. Thank you. Patience Akyianu is the CEO of Hollard Ghana. Please put your hands together one more time for her. And if you're watching us on social media, this is the Business Executive Breakfast Series. Today we're exploring organizational resilience, speaking to 3 high-level leaders. Patience has been steering the ship at Hollard for 3.5 years, and she's done a fantastic job. She just outlined the 3 pillars with which she works: the purpose, vision, and values. And then I like the order of the arrangement as well, because a lot of businesses will start with, want to generate shareholder value, but you put that at the bottom. You deliver value to the community. You make sure that your employees are well taken care of. And then, of course, you do it in a sustainable way. You manage risk, and then you deliver value. So we'll talk a bit about that further. And if you're enjoying what you're watching, you can put a post underneath the stream, #partner for growth. MTN Business is your business partner for growth. And in fact, we have some goodies for you at the end. If you tell us who you are, tell us more about your organization, your name, where you're located, and the kind of business you do. Give us a short sentence of how MTN Business has helped enable or transform your business. We'll give you some fantastic prizes at the end. So from insurance, we're moving into banking. And this gentleman I'm going to call is an interesting person, because his role, I don't know if 20 years ago that role ever existed. You know, there are some jobs that have always been there. MD is a job we always know. But Chief Transformation Officer, no. Maybe in Transformers, you see Chief Transformation Officer, but in a company, but apparently he's doing a great job at it, which is why the CEO asked the CTO, not Technology Transformation Officer, to come and stand in his stead and share his thoughts on how Fidelity, one of the companies we are so proud of in Ghana, it's a wholly Ghanaian company, great financial institution, and they say, believe with us. So our next speaker for the next 5 to 7 minutes is the CTO of Fidelity Bank, Christie Champang. Put your hands together for him.
Thank you, Bernard. Good morning, everybody, and I'm pretty excited to be here. And you're right, I am the Chief Transformation Officer of Fidelity. Can I have my slides, please? What I want to do today is, in short succession, I'll talk about 3 things. One is the resilience that Fidelity had to go through as a bank during COVID. We'll also talk about how we balance risk and opportunity as well. And more importantly, we'll then give you a view of what Fidelity is doing from an innovation point of view. Next slide. So this is the global outlook, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, because we all know, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know that the global markets are on fire. We have the Russia-Ukraine war, which is now a big issue for all of us. It's having a big impact on food security. We also realize that commodity prices have got a bit of a hike. Supply chains are disrupted, and there's also a big inflation. So we've got a high level of cost of living across the globe. Now, when you get to Ghana, we have an exchange rate pressure on the dollar against the cedi, and we also have rising inflation. So when you look at the outlook generally, the global economy is challenged. There is going to be a recession. It's a case of when and how long it lasts. And from a domestic point of view, interest rates have gone up, and the fiscal deficit target likely to be missed in 2022 for the year. Next slide, please. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and set what the vision means in a volatile environment. Here, we're looking at 5 areas. Now, what was interesting to note is that before COVID, the 2 biggest resilient issues were operational and financial resilience. So you look at it from a financial resilience, most of the banks were supposed to have high quality capital, and they were supposed to have good liquidity ratios from a regulatory point of view. From an operational point of view, what we had to do was make sure that our day-to-day was working, and we're servicing our clients and making sure the bank was in good stead. Now, COVID struck. What then happened was 3 new resilient items came about. Technology was now challenged. So instead of moving away from scenario planning, we now had to go into live. So back in the day when you had BCPs, all you had to do was do some sort of what will happen if this server goes down. Now the issue is now what happens if nobody comes into work in the building? So COVID struck, and we now had to drive cloud computing. We had to drive AL, machine learning, and so forth. From the workforce resilience, what is important to note here is that for the first time, top of mind, the employee or the employer had to make sure the employees were safe. There was a lot of pressure on the employees where working from home, you had to decide that you were either cooking for your kids during lunchtime because school had shut down. And we also realized that it had a bit of a mental and a physical stress on the workforce because there was a blurred line between when you start working and when you finish working. What Fidelity did in this case, we hired a psychologist to help us guide the staff through that. The societal resilience and sustainability. What, for me, is important is that if you looked at the images that were shown when COVID struck, when the planes were all grounded, you found that the huge smog that was lifted off the industries was just interesting and exciting to see. Some of the birds came out to chirp a lot earlier than normal. So we realized that the planet or climate change was a big issue. And if you know what's happened in COP26 in November, there's a big directive to get zero carbon or low carbon on the economy. And banks have to play a big role in it, and we're the guardians for that custodian as well. Next slide, please. So let's look at balancing risk and opportunity. Now, what we've done in Fidelity is that we realized that we have a risk environment we're working in now. Fraud is on the rise. Cybersecurity is definitely on the rise as well. We have a lot of bad actors in the environment trying to take advantage of the increase in technology. And what you also realize is that when you increase technology in any environment, what tends to happen is that the vulnerability tends to increase as well. So we are looking at how we look at risk and balance that with the opportunities we have with the bank. Now, there's a play to look at in terms of the longevity of the opportunity, and I've highlighted some of them, and I won't go into all of them. When it comes to partnerships, you need to drive some short-term, medium-term, and long-term partnerships. Some of the short-term ones will be there for just a short purpose to fix that. Now, cybersecurity is definitely going to be a long stay, whether we like it or not. At some point, it will become BAU, but at the moment it isn't, because most of the legacy systems do not have a view where we haven't put security by design in them. But going forward, we'll have to do that. When you look at disruptive technologies, for me, I find it very exciting. The one I've heard about today is Li-Fi, where they're thinking of using light bulbs to transmit Wi-Fi transitions. Now, that, for me, is when 5G comes about, the whole idea is that will change the way we do business. Super apps is, again, a very exciting one. If you're under 25, you use less than 5 apps. If you're over 25, you use about 15 apps. So the idea of a super app is now becoming very prevalent. It's very big in the Asian markets, where one child would like to look at just one single app when he wakes up and not move around the phone as much. The last one I'd like to highlight is credit risk. At some point, we have to start thinking of how we leverage data to understand what credit risk means and how we can look at pre-approved loans for our clients, because we have all their transaction data. If you look at the maturity of the opportunity, again, this is just a graph that shows you where the laggards are and the people who are excited about it. But what Fidelity has done is that we have now internal risk management department that looks at all the risk we have, like our credit risk, our market risk, operational risk, and that's something which we're definitely doing to highlight where we are and the opportunities that we can balance against it. Next slide. Now, what we've done in a growth volatile environment, we've expanded our physical footprint. In the outside Accra, we're looking at express branches, and these branches are very efficient. And what we're trying to do is make sure that we service the unbanked and underbanked. We've kicked off a transformation agenda, which I happen to run, and that is looking at the people, the process, and the technology. And the people is all about our clients as well, how we ensure that we improve the customer journeys that the clients have. On the tech side, how do we build a technology platform which is fit for future? We know cloud is now here to stay. Most of the technologies that we felt were going to take years to develop are now here, and we have to face them. When we look at our sustainability framework, we are looking at our green finance, where we're working with partners For example, if you're a client and you want to move away from generator to a solar panel, how do we engage with you and how do we work with you to do that? And then lastly, our agency banking is very, very good. We basically have a huge network across the country. We do some work with MTN as well, where we do a lot of collaboration with some of the products on that platform. And then lastly, we look at how we can educate the SMEs and ensure that we educate them so they have capacity building as well. So the last one talks about innovation, and I'm going to wrap up here very quickly. So if you look at our mission statement, it's all about the best place to bank, the best place to invest, the best place to work, and the best place to benchmark from a regulation point of view. We do have a very interesting enabling environment, and interesting in this case, very good. We actually look at talent management, where we encourage continuous learning using virtual online courses. We allow these courses to be done internally, and we actually feed them back into the bank where you actually solve problems. We have a strong board. We also have a very young Ghanaian bank as well, only 15 years old, but doing extremely well. More importantly, what we look at speed, agility, and flexibility, and where we create cross-functional teams now to build and develop solutions for the bank. And then the last two is all about empowering our staff where they can speak up and add value, because we believe that there's a lot of value in the troops. And I've been on a tour all of April where I've visited about 41 branches, and the amount of exciting ideas we get from the branches is just earth-shattering. And then lastly, what we want to do is leverage data to drive insights, to develop new products and improve the customer experience. So to wrap up, Fidelity is doing extremely well in this case, where we've taken the challenges we had in COVID, we've pivoted now to have a growth strategy. We are now looking at the risk and balancing the risk against that. We definitely want to increase our footprint across the country. We have 75 branches. We're looking to build another 20. We have a digital transformation agenda that we're going through. And more importantly, we're also looking after our staff and ensuring that our staff are front and center of everything we do from an innovation point of view. With that, thank you very much.
Okay. Well, that was a lot to put in 7 minutes. I think it's just a round of applause. Wow. You've taken the thing like the World Cup, wow. Because Sally, the number of slides and things you put together. This is the Business Executive Breakfast Series, and it's brought to you by MTN Business. And it's a platform where we help you think through some of the key issues in business. And happening in April 2022, we're talking about organizational resilience. And we have 3 organizational leaders. You just heard from the Chief Transformation Officer of Fidelity Bank, speaking about how they've used innovation and partnerships and all those beautiful things to keep the bank doing very well. And for them, for customers, they want to be the best bank. For their shareholders, they want to be the best place to invest. And for their employees, they want to be the best place to work. And for other organizations, they want to be the best organization to benchmark. We are going to now hear from a man who I think is one of the busiest CEOs I know, because during the COVID time, this was when their business grew, because apparently everybody decided to go online, start doing Zoom and things. So everybody had to go to work on a network they had to supply. So data became like a human right. People were doing protests. We don't have data. MTN, why? What's going on? All right. So we've all changed how we work, and they empower us to do that. But there's also other things, right? Because even today on the BNFT front page, he's there. They are now doing roaming with other partners here in Ghana as well. And of course, there are other issues he deals with. So he's a very busy man, but he's agreed to be here with us to also share his thoughts on how he's kept the organization resilient, his personal thoughts. So ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Selorm Adadevoh to bring us his thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you, Bernard. Just 1 second. Thank you very much, and good morning to our dear listeners. You know, when I was in primary school, one of my best friends said, always be the first to answer the question, because the answers that will come after will be so good that if you go last, no one will remember what you said. And today I failed badly in my strategy here, so So anyway, thanks to Christie and to Patience for honoring us at MTN with their presence here today, and to the organizers as well for putting this together. I'm hoping I can share some thoughts on the topic that we're discussing here. Let me first of all start with a personal experience. I think a lot of the times we talk about resilience, and for today's topic, really what the role of the CEO is. But I remember in my younger days when I was aspiring to become a CEO, I went for a job interview and I didn't get the offer to be CEO. And when I had the feedback session with the guy who interviewed me, he said to me, I didn't come across like I was resilient. And that was my first real encounter with this word resilience and what it means as, for us as leaders, but also for organizations. From that interview, I spent a lot of time just mulling over what this guy had said to me and, what really resilience means from a leadership perspective. After several years, I think I found the answer to what resilience really means. And perhaps, what I didn't convey in that interview was how I would deal with certain situations. One of the things leaders will tell you, and I gave this feedback to a colleague of mine, a few years ago, and I said, look, it's one thing to achieve results, but it's another thing to be able to explain what you have done to achieve those results. And until you've demonstrated enough that you have been deliberate, you have been purposeful, you have been strategic, it's very hard to attribute anything when it comes to resilience to you as an individual. So, I left that interview and I have to say these experiences have a way to shape your life going forward. And I've become a much better person today from meeting this person who told me about resilience. In my journey seeking out meanings to resilience, I also learned about grit. And I'm just going to read something that I found on the internet about grit, something that, perhaps wasn't front and center to me as a leader. But it says, grit is the persistent effort to achieve something despite obstacles, failures, or difficulties with the determination and perseverance you have. Life will test you at every point. There are challenges which will break you or make you. The idea to give up on something is very common, but people with grit have a positive growth mindset. They keep working hard with patience, even after falling down again and again to become successful. So grit was something that I wasn't too familiar with from the perspective of leadership and what it would mean for my life thereafter. And today, if I translate all of this back to what this means from a business perspective, these two things, resilience backed by grit, are significantly important. And let me just start with what we experienced a few years ago when COVID struck. When COVID struck, I believe, what Christie was talking about, BCP and all of that, we're just going through a process of simulating a very similar situation where we had a crisis and we had to figure out our business continuity. When COVID struck, we had to deal with this front and center and make some very quick decisions on what our priorities are and what our role in the crisis also is. And this was actually a very important process to go through because you couldn't do everything. Bernard talked about all the campaigns that were online about free data, and we knew we couldn't do that. And therefore, we had to take a position on what we could do. But resilience really comes in when it comes to your level of adaptability as things are changing. Some of the things that are changing are positive, and others present obstacles and barriers that you have to overcome. And your ability to work through all of these is really what makes you resilient. Now, resilience starts from us as individuals in what we believe. And therefore, the question is actually quite pertinent when we talk about the role of the CEO. The tone from the top in a crisis or in a challenging environment is so important that if the CEO himself doesn't believe in resilience, doesn't believe we can get through this, that feeling or that energy starts to translate down through the entire organization. I remember I worked in the Caribbean, And it was the first time I faced a major crisis. And when you face a crisis where you have to make decisions about people's lives, it's not trivial. And every minute you lose in making decisions, people are dying. And as a leader, you suddenly find that the entire organization is looking up to you to give direction, to give comfort, and to give a sense of safety. And during all of this, as a leader, if you're not able to present these sets of conditions, immediately you start to struggle on how you can live through these obstacles or challenging times. That experience for me in Haiti, going through a hurricane, was extremely important for my leadership, but also for the type of mindset that we can get into when it comes to a crisis and how we exhibit and demonstrate resilience and grit. COVID was no different, but COVID was a global pandemic, right? Put COVID aside, we deal with challenges every day. Today, if you think about our current environment, we are going through a very challenging time. And at the same time, we have to make business decisions. So on a daily basis, you're dealing with different drivers and factors, right? Outside of big crisis, you're still dealing with things that require you to demonstrate resilience on a daily basis. For us at MTN, we're currently going through a transition. There's a big transformation going on. The world is changing, maybe accelerated by COVID. But the fact is, consumers were changing before COVID came along. It's just been done a little faster. What we have said is, before COVID, our main objective was to become a digital operator because we felt that our consumers were seeking a more digitally enabled environment to work from. As a service operator, as a service provider, our role was to present them with that environment so we can continue to be relevant in their lives. Beyond COVID, we came back and said, it's very good to be a digital operator. But at the end of the day, to the point that Patience was making around our service to community, our service to society, but it's even better if we can be a digital operator within a digital ecosystem, because then the benefits of digitization go beyond a single organization and actually translate into a lifestyle. So thinking about this, we said, let's move our objectives and our strategy from a digital operator to something that we're calling Ambition 2025. And what Ambition 2025 primarily means is, one, the environment around us is changing. The people around us are changing. Our consumer needs are changing. How do we serve those needs the best, and how do we stay relevant? To do that, we want to make sure that the entire ecosystem around us becomes digitalized. Our role in that is to enable that digitalization by becoming a platform operator. So we've gone from becoming a digital operator to saying, let's become a platform player, a platform operator. And we're building these platforms across 5 dimensions. What this means is not only will MTN be digital, but our digitization effort becomes a platform for everybody else within the ecosystem, from SMEs to large businesses, to other service providers, fintech companies, to also accelerate their digitization. The benefits to Ghana as a country will multiply. The benefits and growth opportunities to companies would also multiply. But ultimately, consumers will be the biggest winners if the acceleration of the ecosystem happens. And that's really the role we're seeking to play in industry. One of those pillars is network as a service, one of those 5 pillars. And the recent announcement that Bernard talked about our partnership with Vodafone, is exactly that. Today, MTN has built a vast network of over 4,500 sites. And we're saying that we can make this network a shared asset for the industry. This means that other operators who do not have the same scale can achieve the same level of scale by sharing MTN's infrastructure. In areas where MTN does not have the same presence as other operators, we can also share our partners or other operators' infrastructure. What this means is consumers get faster access to services, and in our quest to become a digital economy, all of these things start to play a significant role. Our CapEx efficiency goes up, which means every dollar we spend will go further as an industry, and we can spend the same amount but achieve so much more as an industry. And this is what Ghana needs today. So for us, this is something we're very proud of, something we're very serious about, but ultimately it comes down to a change in environment and how resilient we can be going forward from a strategic perspective. If we don't adapt our strategies, our relevance will be questionable in a couple of years' time. And today we're going through that transformation to remain relevant. That relevance, or that desire to remain relevant, is really our demonstration of resilience as a business. And that strategic change is what will get us there. I'm sure we'll talk a lot more about some of these as we go along. But I just want to summarize, basically saying, for me personally, before we talk about business resilience, we have to talk about individual resilience and what sort of mindset supports that resilience. A growth mindset means you're really thinking about how do you continue to grow irrespective of the environment around you. And recently I bought a book for my son who's 5 years old, which had growth mindset for kids. And when I saw it, I just laughed and said, I've been battling with growth mindset for the last 6 years. And now they have a book on growth mindset for kids. So I bought it for him. And I asked him recently, what did he learn from the growth mindset? And I think he has to read the book again, but we'll deal with that. He's not quite there yet. But I say this because that individual mindset is so important. And for all of us as individuals listening and participating, let's start with ourselves and think about our own resilience, our own mindset, grit, and what it means to us. From a business perspective, resilience translates into your strategy and what you prioritize. And I think Patient read out a fantastic list of 5 or so things. And that's important because your priority should demonstrate your mindset around resilience and grit. And for us going through a transformation in the telecom sector today, you've seen we've gone through different stages of the industry, and all of this have been demonstration of our resilience when the environment around us is changing, the needs from consumers are changing, and our ability to remain relevant is our primary objective. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sure we'll have more discussion soon. Cheers.
Thank you.
When we connect, everything is possible. Whatever seems unreachable becomes even closer. Building partnerships. Redefining the norms. Because when we connect, being there becomes possible. And new ideas come to life. Stay ahead and stay connected with MTN Business Broadband. Superior internet solutions that drive your dreams. Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh or call or WhatsApp 0244 308 111.
MTN.
Yes, this is the Business Breakfast Series, Executive Breakfast Series brought to you by MTN Business. And as you just saw, yes, tell us the name of your business. If you're watching us online, tell us your location and add your phone number and the type of business you're doing. And just mention one way in which MTN Business Solution has helped transform your business. We have some great prizes for you. And mind you, the most interactive viewer will go home with a brand new phone. The most interactive, you are going with a brand new phone. So, Selorm, thank you. That was awesome. This is the Business Breakfast Series. So many things I've heard. I don't even know where to start from. I'm going to probably ask you first all about people, because I see that line running through. And Patience, I'll start with you because I was on Heritage Caravan with your people, and everybody kept talking about you. Because I need to say to you that insurance was very boring until Hollard came. And I'm not saying this because you're here. AVL and Co know this, because insurance is drab, it's claims, all kinds. But people were excited. Every location we got to, there were Hollardites in purple T-shirts waiting to meet us. They were excited to work for the brand, And when I talked to them, there's something about the leadership. You mentioned people in your list of 5 that he referred to. Just talk to me a bit about your mindset towards people. How do you get the right people? In fact, we got to Nkrumah's hometown on a Sunday afternoon, and there were Hollard guys serving us sobolo. You know what I'm saying? And they were just so happy to see us. So clearly you've done something right with getting the right people to keep the organization going. So what is your philosophy on people and how you hire them and work with them?
So it all starts with vision setting, really, and getting everyone's buy-in on the vision. So rallying people around the vision. Because when people know where they are going and they have an enthusiastic leader, you know, it's easy to influence, to motivate them and to get them to come along. And really, colleagues and employees rally around a great vision. So if you want to create that kind of conducive environment for growth and high performance, you need a great vision. And the leader has to be seen championing that vision. For some reason, I'm passionate about the work I do. You know, when I was in the banking industry, I was very passionate. In the insurance industry, I'm also very passionate about the opportunity. And so, you know, passion is infectious. So once there's clarity around the vision, your passion infects people, then you create that kind of high morale that gets employees going above and beyond.
So you cannot have a resilient organization without a resilient leader. Because clearly you moved. I know you were in the banking sector, and you sort of assembled this dream team of people to start something fresh. So clearly there was something there personally.
So you'll be surprised to know that not everyone in the team is new. Actually, just a few of them are new. So it was the old people,
okay.
Which is amazing to the point you make. A lot hinges on leadership. You know, leadership is that one factor that can, which is game changing. So once you have the right person in place, even, you know, the people who otherwise or before, prior to your joining, were, you know, classified as the B team, can actually, and now that's what I have. I have everyone playing their A game. You know, I just brought in a few because I noticed some capability gaps, and I brought in a few people. But I'm working with the old people, and they are shooting. Amazing. You know, yeah.
Let me come to Christie. Fidelity Bank, you mentioned people, process, and technology. You are the Chief Transformation Officer, so I know technology will be very important to you. But what is Fidelity's approach to people in terms of your team? Is it you just pay them more than other people? Or, you know, some companies just say, how much are they paying Bernard? Oh, 10,000, let's make it 20, let him come and work for us. Is that approach you use? Because you said something that struck me. You said for your customers, you want to be the bank they want to work with. And then for your shareholders, you want to be the institution they want to invest in. And then for your employees, you want to be the company they want to work for. How do you achieve that?
That's a good question. So from a Fidelity standpoint, we're very fortunate to have very young people in the bank.
Yeah.
Very young. Which means we are blessed with creativity and talent.
Yeah.
Now, what we've done is that we've created this enabling environment where if you talk to most people, they've seen career growth within Fidelity. They've seen, they came as a national service person, they've become a branch manager. Now, what has happened is that we've got this way of where we've held people who, if you work hard, you get rewarded very well, and you get rewarded with opportunities. So I think I mentioned earlier in one of my slides about the enabling environment. If the environment is enabled right, and to Patricia's point, the vision is set correct, and everybody can look at that vision and look at it as a kaleidoscope where they see the role they play, you get this infectious behavior around the organization where everybody wants to pull together. Now, we have a environment where now, unless you continuously learn, you are going to struggle. So we've enabled an environment where now online courses are there available for people to learn, being able to solve those problems in the bank as well, and given that feedback loop and being able to see your ideas come to fruition is where people start to get excited.
I'll come back to that. Selorm, I remember sitting with you somewhere discussing 25 years of MTN, and there were a number of employees who had been with the company since it started. I was quite fascinated because technology changes very rapidly. So if there's a company that will have a lot of turnover, it should be MTN. Yet there were people on that call who had been there from the beginning, and they were still happy to be there. So clearly a company is doing something right in relation to not just attracting but retaining good quality. What's the secret?
I wish I could take credit for that too, but I've been there less than 5 years, so clearly it's... no, look, I think there are a number of things. The same drivers you highlight about technology evolution has two sides, right? When things are changing really rapidly, then you could translate that into changes within the organization itself. Or you could adopt a philosophy around how do we create adaptability within the business so people can continue to change. Keep it exciting for people, keep it purposeful for people, so people get the opportunity to do different things. Some of those you reference have been in the business 25 years, and they've been in 5 to 10 different roles, right? So they've had the opportunity to do very different things, but they've also had the opportunity to learn and grow. So I think one of it is really finding that sweet spot and the balance between adapting, creating variety, and creating upward mobility for staff so they can continue to find meaning in what they do on a day-to-day basis. And it's not trivial. I mean, today, this is one of the topics we talk about a lot, around how do we keep the business dynamic, at the same time preserve loyalty. And these are challenges that we face and talk about all the time. But those are the types of things.
A lot of the people watching us who run their own companies, I believe their major challenge is keeping good people. I spoke to a startup which had grown maybe 9 years, and the CEO and the HR was, tell the young people that they should not be going quickly. They just leave. When we train them, 3 years, they move. And they really can't figure out how to keep the people. Patience, do you have any thoughts on that? How do you keep good people?
By intentionally investing in people and having talent development as one of your key priorities. Because really, for most companies, we say it, but I don't know whether we mean it. We say people are the drivers of the company and they are the main assets. But what do you do with your main asset? What is your main asset, Bernard? And how do you value that main asset? So we should put our money where our mouth is, right? By investing in people and taking care of people and creating the kind of environment that will keep good people, in the organization for as long as they want to be there.
In the financial services, I notice being considered conservative can be good, particularly when there's uncertainty. We had a financial crisis. So a lot of times, the more creative you are, the more the regulator is not happy. They just want you to stay where you are. So I'll start with Fidelity. Yet you keep talking about innovation, right? Yet, almost every month you hear BOT say, look, these guys are coming with something new. We don't have a sandbox for it yet. We don't want you to stray into that. How has a financial institution like yours managed to be innovative in a regulatory environment which encourages caution more for the banking than even I'll come to insurance? How have you managed to do that?
So you are right. The regulators put some guardrails around the way we work in the industry. But I'll give you an example. So in 2013, Fidelity kicked off the agency banking, which was something which was new and was able to provide banking services for the underbanked and unbanked across the country. We do some interesting work with MTN, where we look at yellow loan, yellow bosia. So even though within the framework, there are still opportunities where you can still develop that creativity. Classic one which came up recently is we've done some interesting work leveraging data to see how we can look at our clients and what products we would give to them. That's all within the regulation environment. But we're now thinking, if I have data, I have my tech, I can still generate using machine learning AI to do some work there.
Very interesting. Patience, what about you? Again, you do a lot of interesting ads. I've told your people your live product have an advert I completely like. Mebambo. I mean, Akrobetu Bukom Banku. Awesome. I love it. Again, I know you are very good at risk. You are a proper banker, right? Then you move into this insurance area, and all of a sudden, you're doing Araba Hollard, you're doing all kinds of things. How do you balance that? Because again, even in insurance, risk is very critical.
It is.
How do you balance the two? So,
by engaging all the right people very early on in the journey. So, for example, our regulator is one of our main stakeholders. Okay. We bring them on board very early, and we learned the hard way when we don't do that there are needless delays in launch dates, etc. So we take them step by step through the process And very early on, they are part of the development. So by the time we are through and contracts are signed, etc., they are aware of what is going to happen. And in addition to that as well, we engage our partners really extensively. So if you notice, the way we do business is through partnerships predominantly. And we work with our partner companies at various levels. So whilst I may be working with the CEOs, etc., to get buy-in, my team is working, with their teams as well. So by the time we go to market, we've actually engaged a lot of our target,
Wow.
Audience, yes.
Selorm, because you've dealt with a hurricane before, I'm sure a pandemic wasn't that scary for you. But how did you deal with being at the center of the national conversation for a long time? Because you are the largest telecommunications service provider in the country. All of a sudden, people cannot go to work. All of a sudden, people have to talk to people on basically using your platforms. So basically, people are going to work depending on you. And you didn't know there was going to be a pandemic. And the resource you have is limited. So it's not as if you can just say, okay, I'm going to expand bandwidth by 2 million, whatever. You have to have time. So I'm just wondering how you were able to cope with that demand and still provide good service that did not lead to people rioting and saying, your service is so bad, when we needed you most, you failed us.
Look, Bernard, very, very good question. And I'm not even sure I have the right answer to this because you deal with the situation as it unravels, right? And, we would always say when you're planning business, you have to have science and art. It sort of comes together in certain ways. So we do all these calculations on what we expect traffic growth and demand on our networks to be. And a lot of the time, that growth is dependent on what everybody else in the industry is going to invest, and you don't really control that. So there's always a degree of uncertainty around what the demand for the industry would be, and secondly, how much of that demand will be served by our competitors and how much can be served by us. So going into 2020, when we did all of this and decided we had an investment plan. Now, what happened in COVID was that the surge in demand meant that even our investment plan would have been inadequate. But there were other drivers. You had the global supply chain challenge, where even our investment plan couldn't be delivered. So, apart from the plans we had, which would have catered for a portion of that demand surge, we also had challenges actually implementing our plan. So your next step is to say, what can I do with what I have, and how do I optimize more efficiently the assets I have? And that's really what our group of engineers started doing, to say, how do we use, our current plan or the equipment we've brought in, where should we put them? Should we stick to the same plan? Should we reprioritize? And we had to do a lot of reprioritization on where our capacity goes and how we support consumers. We also realized we had to deploy other types of solutions. So in areas where we had a huge amount of people on wireless, where we could convert them onto fiber, we would do that because it offloads a lot of the capacity onto our fiber network, and then we can balance the load on multiple networks and not just on the one network. But we did come under crunch. We did have a lot of pressure on our network. We also increased, when we managed to start to get some success with bringing in equipment, we also increased our spend halfway through the year. Even though we couldn't spend as much as we would have liked at the beginning, we were able to spend a little bit more halfway through the year to show up capacity to sort of absorb some of this. But a lot of it is, on the ground, just sort of saying, how do I redistribute load? How do I manage the capacity I have? And, what's the best format to preserve experience and work with the regulators? The last point I'll make is, when it comes to these situations, there's a spirit of togetherness that has to be in play. And our regulators and policymakers all came together to say, look, what are the challenges in the industry, and how do we support industry? And we had several discussions, and the regulators also supported us with extra spectrum, which allows us to increase capacity. And those mechanisms all came into play to help us. But I think the spirit of togetherness and knowing that we're all in this together and we have to all chip in is probably the biggest solution to some of these key challenges when you're going through a crisis.
If you're watching us, this is the Business Executive Breakfast Series brought to you by MTN Business, and we are talking about organizational resilience, the role of the CEO. I do recognize that our panel are people who run large companies, but this does not mean we don't have a place for you who run smaller businesses. And in fact, MTN Business offers solutions to not just large corporates, but also small and medium-sized businesses. And in fact, if you can tell us more about your company, your name, what kind of business you're in, where you're located, with your phone number, just tell us how MTN Business has helped transform your organization. We have some fantastic prizes for you. And the most interactive viewer will win a brand new phone. I have some questions that have been curated from the social media platform. Before I go to them, I have two final questions for the panel. When there's adversity, we all learn to work together. But when things get normal, we relax. I'll give you an example. The last time I did this event, we were all in masks, right? This was like a year ago, and it was very tentative. And I had to do all kinds of things to even get into the MTN building. And I couldn't take off my mask throughout the program. Now, the president has really sort of eased, things are relaxed. During COVID, we all worked together. We were eating together, we were praying together. Everybody was hoping things would. But it looks like, things are normal now. So as an organizational leader, how do you get the same level of drive from people when things are not in crisis mode? Because now everything's okay. So they come to work late. They say, it's okay, it's normal. You know, in those days, you could even say, we'll do a salary slash. They will take it. Charlie, we want to go home. Everybody's happy to work. But now, everybody's like, Charlie, but now everything's okay, so what's the problem? So, Patience, I'll start with you. How do you get people to keep doing what they were doing prior to crisis, now that crisis is over?
But by raising the bar higher and higher.
Okay.
Because incidentally, I started the conversations around my draft contract, if you like, with my stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And I just noticed that the bar has gone higher and higher. So there's no scope to sleep at all. And of course, guess what? I'm going to pass that down. So nobody has the luxury of going to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you raise the bar even when things normalize. Christie, what about you at Fidelity?
I think about this problem differently. I think if you look at what COVID did was, it accelerated quite a lot of events. So if you think about cloud computing, people felt they could toy around with the idea. Now cloud is in play. COVID has pushed cloud to the forefront. So what's happened is that some things have become forcing functions, where whether we like it or not, it's now become the new normal. So if you look at working from home, for example, now we have a hybrid model. You can't go back to that, right? You have these digital nomads now where the young generation want to work from anywhere because they've got 24/7 connectivity. So the way we've dealt with is that we've looked at the opportunities that COVID gave us and how best can we leverage that. And to Patience's point, how can we raise the bar as well and do that?
So it's a blend. For some people, what COVID brought is the new normal. But certain things, you have to go back to the old, depending on. So finally on that, before I ask one of the questions, how do you keep the bar high when things normalize?
So look, I think I agree with the points that have been made. And I mean, even before things normalized, one of my mentors said to me, the way to keep the drive in a business is to keep raising the bar.
Okay.
And as you keep raising the bar, you keep preparing people so they can do more and more efficiently. So you don't just raise the bar, but if you raise the bar, people have to put in more effort. But if the effort is more efficient, then in the same time window, they're actually delivering more quality. And that's really the objective of all of that. So that's a philosophy that I buy into as well, and that's what we try to do. But there's a second part to it, which I think COVID exposed. Any agents that could do withdrawals. And some regions were, more affected than others. And it was definitely a crisis. A couple of things. The first thing is, in managing these crises, if you have to open the tap, if I can use that word, which basically says the crisis becomes worse when people actually go to the agent and they can't do the withdrawal. Right? You would think the first point of action is to say, how do I stop people from not withdrawing? Let me calm them down and prevent them from stopping. But the first thing is to say, look, let me allow what they are trying to do to continue successfully. because the people will be calmer. That's when you can actually influence them to not withdraw, because they realize that there is no risk to develop mechanisms to deal with it.
Right. I'm going to read a general raft of comments, and anybody who wants to comment. So Akofa Agbemajo simply says, this is very insightful. Thank you, Akofa. Marcos Yao Komada.
Societal one about climate change and sustainable finance is how many investments have you done on the green side. So some of these things you can measure, but it's probably too new at the moment, and you have to test and learn with the measurements and make sure that you can calibrate all the time. But I think you can measure them.
Selorm, any final thoughts on measuring resilience?
Yeah, look, it's a difficult one, but I would say, I had a chat this weekend with someone, and this person made a very profound statement. We're talking about the perception of businesses and things like that, and the statement was, all of these things are long-term measures. And I look at resilience from a long-term perspective, where for a company to be resilient, going through one challenge and surviving is not enough to determine that you're resilient. But going through multiple challenges over time and coming out doing better demonstrates resilience. Because I said, you can have an outcome that may be consequential, or you can have an outcome that has been through deliberate strategic thinking and planning. And repeating that process is really what makes you resilient. So I do think it's a measurement over time to start with. And it measures to a large extent how companies have evolved positively through different challenges and how they've maintained relevance with the consumer base over that period as well. To be resilient, but that's
fantastic.
That's my.
I'll read my final round of comments. Now, the key to these comments is not to get answers, but to just let you know how the listeners and viewers are thinking about what we're saying. So, I'm not going to put you under any pressure to answer the questions. Sometimes, somebody says reason may answer questions, but it takes imagination to ask them. So, it's a good thing to ask questions. Bra Elom says, I really love this program. Can we have this monthly? I'm sure that one the business team would respond. Jeremiah wants to know how you build personal resilience ahead of a crisis to lead a company. Kofi Esalapia is talking something. He says, how is MTN positioning itself for the dawn of the meta space and this implication to the future of business and experiences? Charlie is a PhD topic. Charlie. Hey!
You should come home and ask the question.
The dawn of the meta space, he has put it in quotation. No, the guy is wild. So the whole thing, meta something. A few more comments. Esteban says resilience, just resilience. She likes that. Douglas also says, please, the cost of tableness should come down, please. No, I like this. I mean, sometimes when the president was giving those addresses, sometimes I just go and read the comments at the bottom. Somebody said, Mr. President, the go bestseller in my area has increased prices. Do something about it. Some people just want to have fun. But at least it's interactive. So thank you for your interactivity. Somebody is thanking us for the discussion, surviving and thriving in spite of multiple challenges and turbulences. That's what resilience is. Great comments throughout. The most interactive participant is called Douglas Otu. So if your name is Douglas Otu, or your name sounds like Douglas Otu, you've won a fantastic prize. I'll take a short break. This is the Business Executive Breakfast Series. We'll come and take closing remarks from my panel. We've been talking about organizational resilience, which really is also a build-up on personal resilience. And those of you who won the wow moment, if we are happy, we'll send your names out. If not, we'll keep our prize to ourselves. Stay with us.
Good business means seeing the possibilities and maximizing opportunities. Making sure you have a responsive support system backs your business goals. A partner that gives you a stable platform with reliable connectivity and seamless solutions, and better understands the tools required to take you to the next level. With so many moving parts in running a business, we do our best to provide you with some stability. The only kind of stability you can find with MTN Business Broadband, the fastest and most reliable internet provider in Ghana, making sure you stay ahead and stay connected, because we understand what makes your business tick.
Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh or call or WhatsApp 0244 308 111.
MTN.
Executive Breakfast series hopefully becomes monthly. People have sent questions. I think we should introduce the question of the day. I think between your cousin's question on Metaspace, Ekua Forson's question is interesting as well. She says, my concern has to do with the climate emergency we find ourselves in. How does MTN digitalization, resilience, and my resilience help my business to survive for the next 25 years? Hey, from climate to digital to 25 years, powerful. We'll think about those questions. The good thing as well is that because these questions are in the stream, we can go back and comment and enrich the discussion. So you will notice that the comments are almost 300 now in terms of the discussion. So maybe you can get people from your office to try and address some of them individually, particularly the broadband, the bandwidth, the TurboNet issues. So if you put a comment in there, which was not directly related to this program, we still see it as a customer service opportunity. So one or two of our people will go on there to answer. To conclude, I'm going to take final comments. So final thing, again, most of our viewers are business owners, and they are mostly small and medium sized. What's your advice to them? Things are tough. Okay, you even gave a bad prophecy. You said there's going to be a recession. And when you said it, I bound it in Jesus' name. But you said it. You said there was going to be a recession. All right? So what's your advice to, lots of companies, people are into food selling, people are doing all kinds of things, trying to get by. You're a big bank. You've seen the macro picture. Just give me in a minute your closing charge to these businesses that are, some of them have been thinking of going out of business. Some want to come back to the bank. They want to stop the entrepreneurship thing. It's not working. What's your advice to them?
Yeah, so I did mention in part of my presentation that we do work with the SMEs to encourage their businesses across the hubs, and we do that. We definitely are a bank where we listen to your business proposals and want to work actively with the SMEs. I believe the SME market is the one that's going to grow the government, the country. But in a nutshell, I think the length and the breadth of this recovery that we're going to go through is so unpredictable. So it's going to require extreme flexibility and agility as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that's very important that we all take note of that one. But as a bank, we're definitely open to working with the SMEs from a commercial point of view as well.
Patience, what's your comment to hustling businesses?
Well, in terms of the way forward, really, just to hang in there and to keep doing what they do best. We at Hollard have their needs at heart. We've just come out with a product for SMEs. And for a long time, the industry had been grappling with getting the appropriate product together. We have one that we have deployed in partnership with Ghana Enterprises Agency. Okay. And so it's available for all SMEs, and with Hollard, their needs are covered.
Fantastic. And I'll give the last word to Selorm.
Yeah, thank you, Bernard. I mean, I think the advice I will give is when you have a tough economic climate, a lot of the time it affects your margins and your profitability because your cost goes up and the pressure on people's spend increases, and therefore people are not willing to pay as much. My first advice would be more on the fundamentals, which are largely, a lot of our SMEs still depend very, very largely on importing things that they could get and source locally. So the first thing is to reduce your cost basis by depending more on local supply than imported supply. Okay. We've seen currency devaluation kick in, which means your imported spend will go up as well, and that puts more pressure on your profitability and your margins. Yeah. The second one is to look out for creative ways to shore up the business. And a lot of that could be, I've heard a lot of stories since the Russia-Ukraine war about substitution of inputs, right? So people are looking at specific inputs for specific products, and now we're looking at things that are local that can do the same things. So there's a certain level of creativity that's required to solve your short to medium term business challenge. And sometimes we just have to push ourselves to say, what else within my space can help me reduce this dependency on something that may be in short supply or maybe in supply, but at a very significantly higher price. So, I'll just encourage the SMEs to look out for some of these opportunities. If you don't push yourself, you don't see it. And until you believe you can find some of these things, it really won't happen. I'm an investor in several SMEs in Ghana, and we're going through the same process today, saying, how do we improve, our cost basis by depending on a local supply chain. And trust me, once you set to work, you would find some of these solutions. So
fantastic. Okay. Please put your hands together if you can for our panel. Selorm Adadevoh, CEO of MTN, Patience Akyianu, CEO of Hollard Ghana, and Christie Champang, CTO of Fidelity Bank. This has been the Business Breakfast series on organizational resilience, brought to you by MTN Business. And my name is Bernard Avle. Thank you for watching. This video is shareable, so if you're watching on any of the social media platforms, click the like button and share. If you put a question in there, we'll try and answer. And the fact that you are alive means you are a survivor. And the fact that you've been able to tune in to listen or watch this means that you have what it takes to be resilient. We'll see you next time. On behalf of the team from MTN, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
When we connect, everything is possible. Whatever seems unreachable becomes even closer.